Hey guys, here's the gear. Got Mitchell's Wool Fat soap today. I'm going to try the Slurry Lather method on it. I've been looking forward to this, and we're going to be using the Semogue Owners Club with a Taj handle to pick the soap up out of the tub there. He has been soaking maybe for 10 minutes or so. Maybe longer, but if longer, that's good. I like it that way. The hardware today is going to be the old Nacet inside this open comb razor. It's a vintage Gillette new. We say new in all caps when we talk about this model. And this is the long comb version. The Nacet has had 481 uses. So today is +1 of that. And the Mitchell's Wool Fat is here. I used it about 24 hours ago, and so in terms of hydration, it should come up out of the soap in a reasonable way. Sometimes if a soap like this sits for a long time and you're going to try a new lathering method, that may not be a great judge of that method until you've used that soap a few times to have that residual hydration, unless you're using the artisan soaps and you like to scoop. And then that's pretty objective because there's no residual hydration to pass on from one shave to the next. But today, and I usually brush load on any soap that I believe I'm going to keep. All right. The bore is ready to go. I'm going to get my face wet. And as usual, I say I'm going to get my face wet, and I do. But I should have when I had dry hands. But fortunately with this blade, I don't have it in a paper envelope. At least right now I don't. And so I can touch it with wet hands and not get a paper envelope kind of dirty or whatever. So in terms of the vintage Gillette new, the top cap's pretty typical. And the new will often have a slot, a rail here that goes all the way across like this one does. We've seen another one that was a flat bottom new that I had. I believe I used it here recently, that had the rails, but they were shorter. They didn't contact the center bolt right there. This one, of course, goes all the way through. Now, the long comb here uses a very similar base plate to a razor I used recently. You know, you have this main contact patch up here. Now, the long comb and the short comb differ not only, and I've talked about this before, not only in the length of the comb, and when they're side by side, it's super easy to tell them apart. However, if you just were looking at the top of the base plate here, you could easily tell if it was a long or a short comb in this new. The long comb, see, doesn't come as close to the edge. The short comb, it's a much longer, and it tilts down right here. It's a little bit higher. The profile here gets more gradual on the short comb, and it slopes down and gets much closer to the blade edge. And so that makes it an efficient shaver, just like all the new razors are, but you get better blade clamping, and so it's smoother to me and to a lot of other guys as well. And so we had good results, though, from this type of the base plate from a couple of the other vintage Gillette new models. And so we'll see what this one gives us. And here's the Nacet with its markings. I don't use this one too much. And the news are just, this one's got a little bit more feel to it. The short comb doesn't. And both of those, it's almost like in eBay auctions, when you buy several razors at once, these are almost thrown as an afterthought. And that's tremendous because they are such a great bargain. Most of them are made with brass as the core, and then they're plated. And this is one of those. This is the ball end handle. It's hollow here, and then we have these that are press fitted into the end of the hollowness there. The ball end here is solid, and it does offer some pretty good balance. The hollow common bar handle, or rather the fat handle that's sometimes used with a Tex, you can see that in sometimes these new. And then there's a common bar handle, which is less on the Tex and more seen on the news. It's a hollow one as well. And so let's just get going here. So, haven't done the slurry lather method for a few days. I'll recap it for you. I'm going to take the brush and I am going to shake a good bit. It differs than the Marco method in that I don't bring as much water to the table. I do shake out almost as much as I usually do. I'm going to leave a little bit more in there. And then we're going to do, 5-10 seconds of loading, somewhere around there. Let's see, we'll start at the 0 mark. And the idea here is to not really stir up too much lather, but just low. Okay, that's 9 seconds. I'll bet that might be right. I am going to let that drip, into this bowl right here. And if I ever need to go back and get some of that, I can. But that's really it. And you can see that we don't have a lot of suds visible in the brush. With chiseled face, that was pretty typical. It still gave me 3 or 4 or 5 passes of lather because as we now know, it just doesn't take a lot of soap. I'm going to catch the drips by holding my brush up here. Yep. And the point was that I did not mature the lather on my face. With the chiseled face and also with the Williams, with this slurry lather method. I didn't mature the lather because that watery stuff that has a lot of soap in it, that's super slick. And with chiseled face, it was actually slicker than a mature lather was. Now, okay. It's not building up in the same way, but that's okay. It's possible it could need just a little bit more loading. This is a hard soap after all, and so it could differ in load time with the much softer chiseled face. Okay, so let's try now. I did not spend a whole lot of time putting this on my face. I didn't add water to the brush or anything like that. I'm going to open up my handle angle here away from my face, from my usual angle, because I really felt it yanking. And so this is a lot more blade feel, but who knows? The Nacet could need or make use of that. So another way of talking about what I'm doing with my angle here is, say I'm riding the cap. If you want to ride the safety bar, then this would be more of a contact point and your handle might be close to your skin. If you're riding your cap, then most of the pressure is going to be on the top cap here, and so it's going to be open, whereas a balanced angle might be something like this if my skin is horizontal. And different razors will sometimes need different angles. I usually start with a balanced angle with whatever razor I'm using. Okay, I didn't experience a lot of slickness there, but to be honest, it's probably my mistake for trying this razor. It's got quite a bit of exposure, and so by opening that handle angle, I don't think it gave me a good comparison. I'm going to swirl the brush just in the top of the soap for just a little bit, and so we will, touch it on that slurry that was on the soap and put some more of that slurry on my face. And sure enough, it's looking nice. Now, Mitchell's Oil Fat is not a soap where I am looking to try to find something more slick. When I bring this to a mature lather in the bowl, it's wonderful, wonderful. Chiseled Face is not quite as good at that, and so that's why I was happy when I found a slicker way with that soap. All right, so now with that first pass gone, let's go cross grain and see if we can maybe have a more normal angle. With this razor, I may have needed that more open handle angle, and that is an inverse relationship to the blade, and so that a more open handle angle means a smaller blade angle in relation to the skin. I may have needed that, not necessarily for a normal use blade, but for this old Nacet, it might be what is required. I'm feeling a good bit of blade feel here when I don't do with the grain. Now my cheeks were very comfortable, but I think this second pass I'm going to be extra kind, and I'll change the angle a little bit from with the grain. That was still kind of comfy. Let's see what we get after this third pass. Oh, wow, that's pretty efficient. I definitely have had other razors that, with this Nacet, that felt a lot more stubble at this point after the second pass. So who knows, this could be a very good razor for this old Nacet. These vintage news are more aggressive than the Techs. They are a razor that bridges the gap between the old types. Old types were some of the first to come out, and they were the one that a lot of guys moved away from straight razors to go to. They were straight razor folks were attracted by the disposable blade idea. And who knows, there may have been guys who were about to learn to use a straight and just realized they did not need to bother with the old types that were coming out. And when I was younger shaver in several years ago, I didn't have the experience to be able to use the old type in a way that I enjoyed it. But a year after I started, it was a different razor, and I appreciated it. I was able to manage the angle properly and the pressure. And the old type actually does have a pretty good grip on the blade toward the edge of it, and so it's pretty firm shave in terms of a smoothness in relation to the blade, and no chatter, that sort of thing. All right, well, that was a comfy shave, comfy pass. Let's get a little water, and let's do one more pass here. And as you saw, I did dip for the second pass. I dipped back into the kind of the suds on the top of the soap on the surface there, you know, but other than that, this is a fourth pass, and there are a lot of face lathers who definitely have run out of lather by now. And this is protective and slick. And if I have a newer a razor that's in kind of tip-top shape with a newer blade, then I bet with this method I just would need to do maybe 2 passes. And so that makes it just an extra fast way to shave. And I do enjoy not having to deal with the paste. That concentrate, when some guys load for a whole minute on top of an artisan soap, and they come with a very pasty thing to their face. And that's okay, because they're going to add water, you know. But this way, what I come at my face with is enough soap to kind of match the water that I already have in my brush. And so it comes together as a little slurry pretty quickly. All right, that's 4 passes. Now I don't feel super close, but I'm gonna pause you and just take a review of the condition of my stubble here. Okay, well, in some places it is a very nice close shave, but it's patchy. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take a few drops of water, dribble them on my brush here to kind of freshen it up. And let's do one more pass. Oh, you know what we can do? There's that old trick about oh, look, you see how much hydration was still in the brush that was not really combined with the soap. I mean, I don't know if that was on camera or not, but the water just poured out. And that's why I call it the slurry method, because the lather just doesn't come together as a full tilt emulsion. It's like the soap particles. They start to come together a little bit, but then they're still swimming around in so much hydration. And somehow that, for some soaps, makes for an ultra slick lather. Now, since I'm not seeking extra slickness with this soap, what I'm just seeking with this shave is, does this lather method work with Mitchell's wool fat? And yes it does. Does it work better than a person who might bring the lather to kind of full fruition, whether on your face or in a bowl? I don't know. I don't think it works better. It works faster, and that might be what somebody needs. Right over here is where I had some. See, I'm able to go back over areas that have been shaved before in the same pass, and I can hit those again. In many cases without even re-lathering. So that's just a very nice slickness, so that works. That works. Because it's such a good performing soap, it's not as different of a lather, of a kind of slickness as the chiseled face was. But well, the Williams works well with this method, and so does Mitchell's wool fat. It's starting to look like maybe this is going to be a good method with most soaps, and maybe it would be an exception if a soap doesn't work well with this. All right, well, there we go. Let me get a full rinse on. And we're going to be extra nourishing with our skin today. The Mitchell's wool fat is a nourishing soap in and of itself, but I'm going to use this, which is Thayer's Unscented Witch Hazel Solution. It's got aloe in there as well. Now, I really only advise this method if you just are short on time, because this soap delivers a lather that just feels luxurious when you do build it up. It works here in a functional way, having high slickness if you don't build it up, like with this slurry lather method. But in general, I am going to want to be a person who takes a few extra minutes to build it up into that real lather type emulsion. And man, it's decadent on your face, like so many other good soaps are. So because of the type of cut that I got, it wasn't reliable in all areas. It left a few little kind of patches and sporadic bits, and so it did feel like a lot more stubble came off at first, but then it lacks the ability to fine-tune the remainder of the stubble. And so I think this is going to go to the back of the line of the other new razors that we're trying out here. And again, you know what's funny? A lot of times there's a lot of flex in these with the text as well as the news, and you've got to screw it in a little bit more before it locks in. Probably because of age, with the number of times this has been, assembled and disassembled would be my guess. But I wouldn't be surprised if that was a feature, that they wanted it always to be easy to screw together. So there we go. There's the new long comb base plate. The combs come down more by maybe 2 millimeters than the short comb does. Got a nice weight to it. It feels substantial. And I was definitely getting, more than a lot of other razors, that brass smell. Even from my brass carve, even different than that one, I was getting a more significant smell with this one. Now, I like the smell of brass, but somebody who doesn't, and the carve gives it to me only if I put the razor right up under my nose and look for it. I don't smell it with the carved brass razor if I'm using it normally. But this one, I could smell it even when I was just using it normally and not trying to concentrate on the scent. So why is that? I don't know. Maybe it needs a good cleaning. Maybe we've got some patina here, that sort of thing. So maybe that was part of the reason. Maybe it hadn't been used in a while. It's possible, since this is one of those that's kind of thrown in there with different lots, it's possible I may have never have used this one, and so perhaps this use might have cleaned it off some. So there we go, and that's the post shave. I can put on a cologne later if I want to. The bowl didn't really, it was just a place to sit the brush. It didn't really leak a lot into the bowl. Sure, the other passes there, the fourth pass was a little bit skimpy. I did go back to the bowl a couple of times, a couple of swirls, just to kind of refresh it. But I think and so maybe I'd increase the load time. Instead of 9 seconds, maybe I'd go 15. And if I did it every day, I bet I could then back that off. But anyway, that's very good. Very good. Well, there we go. That's a good shave. And it can be done quickly if we want. I did 4 passes. Obviously, you won't need to do that if you're not using a blade with 480 plus uses on it, right? And so I think that's a really valid way to go. We'll put a Sharpie dot on the card. Mitchell's Wool Fat. Face lather, bowl lather, slurry method. Looks like it can do a good job with all kinds of methods, no matter how you want to build up your lather. All right, guys, take care. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. I hope this shave here helps you out in some way. If you're a praying person, say a little prayer for the people affected by Hurricane Ian. It's coming this weekend, but by the time I get this out to you, it'll probably be a couple weeks past that. And so it'll be people cleaning up after the messes and trying to rebuild a few homes and that sort of thing. So hopefully everything will be all right with all the people affected in Florida and wherever else Ian is going to go. Take care now. Good night.